What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to a new live stream. And today we're going to have a practical, hands-on overview of a new update in Expo SDK 48. All the updates, all the releases of Expo are exciting, and this is no exception. And I'm not talking about marginal small updates here and there. I'm talking about big updates to a lot of packages and even new packages introduced in the new SDK that will definitely change the way we are going to build mobile applications with React Native and Expo. So probably you are a busy person and you don't have like half of a day or even more to get into the details of what everything that was updated means for you as a developer. So that's why I have prepared for you this video where we will dive deeper and try to actually use the new updates and see how this will impact our development process with Expo. So if you're ready, I think we can get started, and without further ado, let's just jump into creating a new project with Expo SDK 48. For that, we're going to use this command npx create expo app. This is the new way of initializing Expo applications. Instead of using the global CLI command for Expo, we are using this create expo application. And also make sure to add latest in order to use the latest version of the CLI. Also, let's go ahead and choose the template that provides the tabs for us. And yeah, then we're gonna be ready to get started. For that, I'm gonna open a terminal. Let's move it in this way. And here, yeah, let's do npx create expo app. I can even zoom in more. Yeah, npx create expo app, latest and template tabs. After that, Expo will ask us for the name of application. We can go with Expo 48. And then, yeah, like I already have this one, but for you, what you should see is Expo will go ahead and download all the dependencies, will set up your project, and once you see that your project is ready, that means that we are ready to open our project in our editor of choice. In my case, that's Visual Studio Code, and to start playing with a new Expo SDK. So here I have a newly created application. And the first thing that I want to pay attention to is inside the package.json. And here in the dependencies, we can see that the new Expo SDK is using React Native version 0.71.3, which is actually the latest React Native version as of this video. It was released at the end of January. Yes, it was released at the end of January. And yeah, that means that now going with Expo, we are getting the latest React Native version, which was a bit different in the past, where Expo was always a couple of versions behind the React Native version. Now everything moves way faster, and going with Expo, you don't miss out on the new features that were added to the React Native version. Come on, where is it? So the first big update is React Native 0.71.3 and also the React version 18.2.0. What does that mean for us? That means that specifically React Native 0.71 brings a couple of changes, and we're gonna go through them in this part of the video. The first one that I'm really excited about is, even though it's not huge, but it will improve a lot the way we design grids. Here I'm talking about the flexbox gap. So imagine we have to render a list as we see on the right, where the items have some spacing in between. Usually how you would do it is you would add some margin to the item, but the problem is that the margin will be added to the item from all the sides, on the top, on the right, left, bottom, and so on. So that creates some unnecessary spacing in the container that you do not need. What you actually need is just space between the items. Flexbox gap was a property long supported on the web, and now it is also supported in React Native and in Expo SDK 48. So I recommend going ahead and trying to implement and playing around with this Flexbox gap to see how it can help us in the application. By the way, if you go in the description below, I have attached the blog post from our website, and let me actually go ahead and open it up because it will help us follow along this tutorial ourselves if we are interested. Come on, let me go here. So if you open notjust.dev, go ahead at the blogs and you will find the Expo SDK 48 latest updates. And here I have prepared for you this step-by-step guide to play around and to experiment with the new updates. And the first one is here in the new Flexbox properties, and that's what we're gonna do in our application. For that, let's go ahead and first run our application on the device. So I will open a terminal here. Let's go ahead and do npm start. That should run the Metro bundler. And after that is done, we can press I to open it on an iOS emulator. We can press A to open it on Android simulator. Or we can also scan this QR code with the Expo Go application. But make sure to upgrade the Expo Go application on your device in order to use the latest Expo SDK in the Expo Go application. So after you updated it, you will be able to scan the QR code and to use the application on your physical device. All right, so here I have my application running. It's the template that we are used to with the tabs, even though something huge have changed here, and we're gonna talk about that in a moment. What I want to do now, let's go ahead and open this tab 1 page in our source code and to start working with the flex gap there. So the way we're gonna find this is by opening the application folder, app folder, then opening the tabs folder, and here let's open index.tsx. And if you will delete everything from this container, we see that we have a clear view and we are ready to experiment. Yeah, I can go ahead and remove the title and separator style, and also I can remove align items center and justify content center. So we have as clear as like this. Now what I want to do is I will display 5 boxes on the screen, similarly to how you see here. In a way they will be displayed in a grid. So let's go ahead and render these views with styles.box. And that's going to be a self-closing view like this, because we just want to see this box on the screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so for the box, let's go ahead and add some styles for it to make it an actual box. So I'm gonna go with some width. We can start with 150, height as well 150. Nothing is going to be displayed on the screen yet, but if we change the background color to Azure, I don't know how to pronounce this name. Yeah, we already see something there. But everything is the same color, so we would let's add some borders there. So border color aqua, and border width, let's go with 1. Okay, that added some border to our boxes, and now it's a bit better to understand what's happening there. We want to display them in a grid view, so I'm gonna start by adding flex direction row to our container to display them in the same row. And yeah, that display them in the same row, but I want to say if they do not fit on the same row, go ahead and wrap them from a new line. So to do that, I'm gonna do flex wrap. I want to wrap just like that. Yes, perfect. Yeah, that's the initial step. We are displaying 5 boxes on the screen. Our next goal is to add some spacing between these items. Imagine these are some photos, some pictures, some items that you're displaying in the grid, and you want to add some spacing between them. Well, you could go ahead and add margin here, and let's go ahead with adding margin 10. And that looks okay because it added the spacing between, but the problem is that it also added the space around. So now our items are not touching the borders of a parent container. Usually there was a hack for that. You would go ahead and add margin minus 10 on the parent container, and that would bring them back there. But this is a shortcut, this is a hack, and that's not how it's supposed to actually work. So let's go ahead and delete this margin 10, and also delete this margin from the box, because we're gonna be able to use the new property flex gap to add this spacing. So to do that, we can go ahead on the container, add gap property, and here we can add gap 10, and it will add 10 pixels, only 10 pixels between the items. And yeah, that's how it works. 2 more properties that we can derive from this gap is how much spacing do we want to add between different lines in our grid, and with that we can do is it row gap, and if I add, like, if I want more spacing between the rows, I can increase that using the row gap, and as we can see, the spacing between the items between the rows is much larger. And as well, we can do column gap, and this will specify how much spacing is between the items in the same column, in the same row, basically. So if you're using both row and column gap, you do not need this gap, because this will add the gap for both rows and columns. And here you can play around with how you want your flexbox to look. All right. So that was everything about the column gap. The another thing is that most often when we are trying to work with grid views, we are doing that using a flat list. So let's have a look at how we would do this with a flat list. And for that, let's go ahead and import the flat list from React Native, flat list from here. We can render the flat list just like that. For the data, I'm going to generate an array of, let's say, 12 items, and I'm going to fill them with a random value like 0, because the value does not matter. Like, I just want an array of 12 items in order to render 12 boxes on the screen. So in the render item, for every item, I'm going to simply render this box here. Now let's go ahead and remove the boxes from down below. And here we have our flat list rendering all the items from top to bottom. What we want to do is we want to render it in a grid view. So we will increase the number of columns, num columns, to 3, to render them in 3 columns. That will initially give you an error because we cannot change it on the fly. So we have to refresh the application after changing the number of columns. So don't be scared about that, just refresh the application and they will be displayed in the same, they will be displayed again. Now we will also have to change a little bit our styles for our box and the container, because now the container, which is actually our page, it does not need these properties like gap, row gap, and so on, because they will be handled on the flat list level. So let's comment it out and leave only the flex one. And for the box, instead of specifying the width, what I'm gonna do is I will set a flex one in order to say that I want the box to take equal amount of space between its siblings. So if we have 3 items in the same row, I want all of them to take 33% of the screen. And I'm also going to give an aspect ratio to 1 to make it a full square. And we are back to how we started with a column of 3 boxes. But now they are scaling dynamically with the screen size. Okay, perfect. Here, if you want to add these properties, gap properties to our items, we're going to do that through some properties of a flat list. First of all, we're going to use the content container style, and these styles are applied to the whole container that is including our content here in the flat list. So if we're thinking about the whole container, what is the next sibling of that container? Not the next sibling. What is the next child, next level of childs? The next level of childs is all the rows that we have here. So if I'm gonna give gap 10, that will add spaces between rows. And I can do it even 20, for example. Oh, 10 is gonna be enough. And as we can see, it does not add spaces between the items, even though we are using gap, we are not using row gap. That's because our columns, they are wrapped inside another container. So we need to specify the styles for the column wrapper style. And these styles will be applied to every column individually. So now if I'm gonna add here gap 50, you're gonna see that the items between them in the same row, they will have a much larger gap. So that's how easy it is in how we can use gap properties to style flat list items, both vertically and horizontally. We need 2 of them. So yeah, maybe in future, it's gonna be much easier to do it through only 1 property instead of 2 of them. Okay, perfect. So, if I'm not mistaken, that's everything with the Flexbox gap. We're not gonna stop longer because we have other important updates that I want to talk about. And yeah, I hope that was clear enough, and that's gonna be useful for you and for your next projects whenever you have to render grid views in your application. Here you can see more details about this flat list. The next updates that are coming as part of the React Native 0.71 version is some updates that are meant to bridge the gap between React Native and web development. And this is done with a goal to move towards a place where we will be able to build universal application with React Native for both web, iOS, Android, and so on. At the moment, it's possible, but there are still some missing parts, and that's why with these updates, we are getting closer to that point. So for accessibility, we have a lot of area properties that you can specify to define better accessibility for your application, and also pointer events for our views. For example, we have now onPointer over and onPointer out. That basically allows us to implement features that are very common on the web and not so common on the mobile, which are having the mouse hovered on top of some elements, like on top of a button, like what should happen? We need to highlight that button. So with bridging this gap with the web, we will need this to handle these events. That's why they were introduced, and we can handle them on our views and also on our pressable components as well. That's the most major updates that are coming from React Native 71. I'm going to talk about other important updates a bit later, but the next one that I want to cover is Expo Router version 1. So Expo SDK 48 includes Expo Router by default and adds first-class support for the Expo Router. And as you see, our application that was created using the Expo CLI, using the default tabs template, it is already using the Expo Router. If we're looking in the package, we see the Expo Router here. And yeah, I'm excited about that because that means I gave it a try to Expo Router. It's really nice. We're going to talk in a moment about its benefits, but having Expo Router as the default navigation library in Expo, that means that yeah, the Expo team is going all in on the Expo Router, and I think that's the right decision. Seeing like how easy it is to work with it and how easy it is to manage your navigation system. So a couple of features and how Expo Router is different than the other navigation library. Expo Router is a file-based navigation system, and that means that we create folders and files in our source code, and Expo Router automatically creates routes and screens and pages in our application. This is very similar how a static website would work, where you'd have like folders, and to open a page, you would have to go to a URL, for example, /about/ home or something like that. Expo Router is built on top of React navigation, if you have experience with React navigation, you're gonna be able to reuse your pre-existing knowledge in order to set something up and configure the navigation to look the way you want to look and to behave the way you want to behave. Yes, another feature of the Expo Router, just give me a second. Yeah, another feature of Expo Router is the way we are navigating. We are basically navigating based on URLs, which is very similar how navigation works on the web. So to go to the items, to the shop and the items page, you would navigate to shop/items, and that automatically is being mapped to your files and folder directory inside your app directory. So if we look at the project right now, we have this app directory that contains files. One of these directory is tabs, and this contains the page for our tab 1 screen and the page for tab 2 screen. If we're gonna go ahead and create a new file here, free tsx, and here we're gonna generate a new functional component like this, we see that it automatically, without anything else, it added a new tab inside our bottom tab navigation with label free. If we go there, we see this text there. So we simply created a file, Expo Router automatically created the page, the route, registered it there, and now also we can navigate to this page from anywhere in our application using URLs. Another cool thing is the dynamic routes, and with dynamic routes we can basically specify that some part of a URL is a variable. And again, this is very common in web development, where when you go to a user page on Twitter, you basically go to twitter.com/ for example, Vadim notjust.dev. And that part of a URL is dynamically taken from the URL and passed as a property to our page. And that's what's happening with Expo Router as well. Yeah, basically we define these dynamic properties in square brackets in the file name, and then we can take them inside the page from the parameters. Another cool feature about Expo Router is the deep links, because deep links are automatically created and generated for all our pages. So deep links were always a struggle for mobile developers, and yeah, not anymore, because they are automatically handled and managed for us, and we can test that using the URI scheme command. So I'm going to open a new terminal here, and if I'm going to go ahead and write this command that will simulate us opening a deep link, for example, opening the model deep link, if I'm going to press enter, we're going to see that without doing anything, our model screen is automatically opened in our application. And we have automatically deep links for all our files. So for example, if I want to open this to page, I can go here instead of model, I can say to, and that will automatically open the deep link for this URL. Where is this hopefully you saw everything. Yeah. Where is this important? This is important whenever you are sharing URLs to some content inside your application. So for example, let's say you're building a social media application and you want to share the URL to a post. Let's say you want to share a URL to a TikTok. You will share a URL, a very specific URL, which is called a deep link or also a universal link. And whenever some user will press on it on their device, it's gonna automatically open the TikTok application and will not leave you on the home page, but will automatically open the page of that post. So yeah, that's the power of deep links. And now with Expo Router, it's even easier to manage them because they are automatically generated for us. If you want to know more about the Expo Router, we have a very in-depth tutorial about this on YouTube. You can check it out on our channel, and there we explain more on how you can use it, what's the features, and how to understand the mental model that you need to have in order to work with a file-based navigation system. And that's it with Expo Router for this video, because we want to cover the next exciting features. And the next new package that was added to Expo, and I think that is going to be used by a lot of you because it's such primitive functionality, is Expo Image. So Expo Image is a successor of a React Native image component. And you might think, like, why do we need another image component? Well, the problem with the image component from React Native, as usual, is performance. So there are some issues with specifically caching images where it kind of works. It's not always working. There is a lot of cache misses. And that impacts the performance of the application. Another thing about React Native, there are some bugs with flickering when you scroll through a list of images, or when the source of the image changes, the image will have a flicker, and that leads to bad user experience. So with Expo Image, they addressed all of these issues. The Expo Image is designed for speed. It also supports a lot of image formats and also animated image formats. It has a better caching and also adds some important patterns for image loading that are very common around web again. And here I'm talking about blur hashes, placeholders. So for example, when you open the application, you see just a placeholder of an image and then it loads, and also dynamic transitions between images. So let's go ahead and give it a try to Expo Image, put it in practice and see how we can use it, and maybe potentially see some performance improvements for the library. So let's go ahead to use Expo Image. All we have to do, come on. Yeah, all we have to do is open a terminal and do npx install. And here we're gonna install, npx expo install expo-image. Okay, installing one SDK48 compatible module. That is done. And let's go ahead in our, where should we do it? In our index, or should we leave our index for our boxes? Let's go ahead in tab 2. So I'm gonna open tab 2. I'm gonna delete everything from here except the container. And I'm gonna go ahead and render the image. But for that, we need to import at the top image from Expo Image. And we need to destructure it right away, like this. Now let's go ahead and render this image on the screen. And of course, nothing is there because we need to provide a source. For the source, you can take it from our guide on notjust.dev. So if we go to the images, here is the source and also the blur hash. So actually, I'm going to take the blur hash first, and I'm going to explain you in a moment what that means. And let's take the whole image from here and render it here. And we need some styles for our image, and here are the styles. Let's go ahead and instead of title and separator, we need the styles of the image. And as you can see right away, when we load the application, we go to the tab 2. At the beginning, we see this background color. Then we see the placeholder with a blur hash. And yeah, as you can see, it's a placeholder that contains some colors of the original image, and it provides a better experience of loading that image. And our transition, because we specify the transition 1000, is slowly moving to our image after it has been loaded. So you of course can decrease this to have a faster transition animation like this. But yeah, the cool thing is that you can adjust this transition animation between different sources. And if you dynamically change this source, let me check if I can do that right now, and we can see that because we will not have this flickering. So if I'm gonna do, instead of this view, a pressable that has an onPress event, and in this onPress event, I will change a state variable called seed. I haven't tried that, but I really want to check to dynamically change the source, the image that we want to display. So initially it can be 696. And whenever we change it, let's do set seed. And here, let's do it with a number. I'm gonna do seed +1. And in the source, we can, the way this Pixum API is working is after this seed, if we provide a different number here, it's gonna give you a different picture. So we need to also make sure to import useState from React. It's there. Pressable from here. And we need to put this dynamic seed inside our URL, like, come on, seed. So if I'm gonna press on this component, it should somehow change the image, but it doesn't happen. No, it's happening. So as I'm pressing, the image changes and there is no flickering between it. And I would also want to do the same with an image that is imported from React Native. So let's import the image from React Native as React Native image. Let's go ahead and inside this pressable, render the React Native image. I'm gonna comment it out here. And we can do it with a source. Here we need to specify the URI, and the URI is going to be this one. And the styles are going to be this one. Okay, now, probably when there is only one image, the flickering is not visible. I think that this flickering is visible when you are rendering a lot of images. But still, as you can see, there is no transition. So just by using the Expo image, you get the nice transition out of the box here. And when you press, you see the image transitioning to the next one. Perfect. So that's about the image component. I think I also wanted to give it a try and test a bit of a performance for the image and render a lot of images on the screen. But the problem is that I'm not going to be able to run it on my physical device in order to scroll fast. But let's try. And for that, I'm going to need a flat list. Where data, I'm going to do an array of 100 items. And let's do fill everyone with 0. Then in render item, let's go ahead and render this image. For the seed, I'm gonna go ahead and actually take the index of this image and use it as the seed. So every other image is going to be different. I think I'm not gonna need this pressable anymore, so I can leave only the flat list. I don't need the state. Like this, in the tab 2, something is happening. Not sure if something is happening. Image has a width of 100. I think I'm gonna use a flex one here. Wait, flex one. Aspect ratio 1, will it work? Yes, it works. So this way we are rendering multiple images. Maybe we also want to render them in multiple columns. So because we already saw how we can use multiple columns in a flat list, so maybe 3. And with some gap between them. All right, that's better. So right now, on this page, we are using the image from Expo Image. And on the third page, I will go ahead and use the same component. But in that situation, I'm going to use the image from React Native. So I'm going to use React Native image here. And I need to update the source to have a URI like this. The React Native image doesn't have a placeholder, doesn't have a content fit and a transition. So I'm going to go easy with it. So here in the tab 2, we have Expo Image. In the tab 3, we have React Native image. And we're gonna see the benefits of caching. In the beginning, like everything kind of loads the same with the same speed. However, after the first load, after we load the images the first time, if I'm gonna refresh the page, now the images should be cached and should be loaded faster with Expo Image rather than React Native image that are loading much slower. Not sure if you can see this here, like on the physical device, it's visible way better, but the problem is that I cannot show you the screen of my physical device. So you can give it a try on your own phone to see how this looks in the hand. in terms of performance, in terms of caching, refresh the application, see how everything happens in terms of loading the second time. And yeah, decide for yourself whether it's faster or not. How to create this blur hash? That's a very good question. To be honest, I don't know. There should be an algorithmical way to create a blur hash based on the image and based on the colors. If you're using some services specifically for images like Cloudinary, I think they automatically have a blur hash URL where you can query the blur hash of the image to be rendered as a placeholder for your image. But to generate it yourself, I don't know. I would have to look into that to see what algorithmic way you can use. If you have questions, guys, leave them below. And I think we are ready to move to the next updates that we want to cover. And yeah, the next ones, I will mostly cover them here. So the other important updates in Expo SDK 48 in no order of importance are, first of all, Hermes became the default JavaScript engine for Expo applications, and now it is enabled by default instead of the GSC, the JavaScript core. And what does that mean for you as a developer? That basically means that your application will load much faster. It will have a smaller application size. It will have a better memory consumption, and it will have a better debugging experience. If you want to learn more about the Hermes as the default JavaScript engine for React Native application, you can check it out on this blog post on reactnative.dev. They explain it pretty well there. But in general, in terms of improvements that Hermes is bringing to your application, is on Android, that's going to be around 50% faster startup time, much smaller APK size, and a bit less memory consumptions when using the application. On iOS, that's also true. Only the app size is actually larger than using GSC. I'm not sure why is that on iOS. Why is that the case for iOS? So here we have a real example side by side of an application using GSC and Hermes on the right, and you can see you can see how faster the Hermes application is loaded initially, and these performance benefits we get these performance benefits because Hermes is doing some of the stuff at the build time. Where GSC is doing this at when launching the application. So at build time, Hermes is doing a little bit more work in order to have a better and a faster experience using it. And also Hermes was developed specifically for mobile applications, and that's why it's much faster. Another update that is available on the Expo SDK 48 is the right to left languages. They are available in Expo Go. So by installing the Expo localization and by enabling them in your app.json file, you can automatically have right to left view interfaces when the language that the user selected in his mobile phone is a RTL language, like Hebrew or Arabic. Another important update that probably will not affect you a lot at this moment, but is crucial for developing and moving towards the new architecture, is that with this new SDK, all the Expo packages support the new architecture and the fabric. All all with a star because everything except the Expo Go application and the Expo Dev client. It is still not recommended to switch to the new architecture in your application because most probably you're gonna get into some roadblocks in case where some of the third-party libraries that you are using are not yet migrated to the new architecture, so you'd have to switch back to the old architecture. But yeah, this is a big step, especially from Expo, because we are using a lot of Expo packages in our day-to-day development work. So it's a step forward, and all we need to do is to either help the rest of the community to move to the new architecture, or to wait until that happens and most of the packages that we are using are migrated to the new architecture so that we can enable it in our application as well and get the benefits from it in the application. All right, so moving on to the next update in Expo 48. Expo has announced the general availability for M1 machines in EAS service, in Expo application service. And what does that mean for you? That simply means that if you're building your application in cloud with EAS, then your builds for iOS are going to be faster because the workers that are building your application are running on M1 chips instead of running on Intel chips. And from their post, they are saying that this improved the speed with an average of 40%, which is a lot. Especially, it always bothers me that it takes so long to build a mobile application, where on the web you just push your code and in 2 minutes or even less you have your application deployed. On mobile, we still need 20 minutes, sometimes even 1 hour, up to 1 hour to just build our application. And now with M1 workers on EAS, this has been reduced and we can build and get our application in the hands of a user much faster. If you want to upgrade from the SDK 47 to SDK 48, all you have to do is go ahead and install the Expo 48 package in your project using this command. Then you would want to upgrade all the dependencies to match the SDK 48. So by running npx expo install -- fix, that will fix the other dependencies that you have in the project that has to be updated. And lastly, go ahead and check the Expo Doctor to make sure that everything has been migrated successfully. Also, I would recommend you to check out the release notes and the documentation and the post about this new update. You will find the link in the resources at the end of the post on our website. And if you go there, you will see also some important deprecation, renamings, and removals. And for example, the entry point has been removed from app.js. And if your application is using the entry point, you have to switch to the main property in your package.json. And also, check the other deprecations and renamings to make sure that they do not affect your application. Okay, so that was most of the important updates that caught my attention and that I wanted to try to get my hands on. If I missed something, please let me know. Let me know in the comments, in the live chat. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them. Most probably I'm gonna answer most of your questions in the comments below, not to go too long in this live stream. Because what I want to do in the end here is I want to do the last important step. I want to announce the giveaway winners that we have. We were running a giveaway previous week for our full stack mobile development course. where you could sign up. And today I want to announce not to announce, but yeah, to find out, to select the winner, and to announce it here live with you guys. So for that, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab the list of all the participants that entered the giveaway, and we have 300. Come on. Yes, here we have our. I want to make it bigger, and I want to make sure that I do not show you any personal information. So we have here 432 people that entered the giveaway. And let's go ahead and use Google, use a random generator to get a random number and to select the winner. So random number generated. I'm going to use the Google one. We can refresh. And from minimum 1, maximum, we have 432 people. That's a lot of people that wanted the course. So 432, here we have it. Are you ready, guys? Let's go ahead and press generate and see who is the winner for our first ever giveaway that we are doing, actually. So 1, 2, 3, let's go. And the winner is the number 295. Let's go ahead and see the name of that person, 295. Here we have, and the name is Ace. Ace, if you recognize your name, go ahead and write me a message. Otherwise, I'm gonna reach out to you over email. And congratulations, you just won the full stack mobile development course, the premium package. And yeah, you're gonna be able to get started with it as soon as possible. So let me see if I can find some questions that I can cover live, and we can go through them in the next couple of minutes. Haro, I saw your comment. I'm not sure if we're gonna do the Uber Eats anytime soon because we have it on the channel. It's a 5 days project. It's a huge one. So yeah, let me see our questions. Does Hermes mean that we must use Flipper for debugging? Using Hermes for your application means that you can use Flipper for debugging, but that's not the only option, because you can also debug your application with the Google Chrome debugger. But the only difference between GSC and Hermes and debugging it with Google Chrome is the way that everything works. With GSC, the code was actually being run in Google by the V8 engine, if I'm not mistaken. Probably not. But and yeah, the code was running there. And the problem with that was we were not able to debug native code that was running in our application, because it was only executing the JavaScript side of a code in the browser, and that's how we were able to see the logs. With Hermes, we can use the same Google Chrome debugger, but in this case, Google Chrome debugger will not execute the code. It will attach to the Hermes instance, and it will just simply display the logs in the console there. And that means that with this, we will be able to debug and see the logs that are coming from the native side as well. We can debug the native code, so the debugging experience is way better. I haven't got into a lot of details with this yet, to be fair, but that's how I understood it. If you okay, let's see. The currently Expo Image, Expo Image is actually already able to be used in the Expo Go application, and in the documentation they are still saying that it's not available, but with a new SDK 48, and if you upgraded the Expo Go application, you are able to use the Expo Image in Expo Go as well. React Native Fast Image is far better than the Expo Image. Expo Image is an alternative to React Native Fast Image, and yeah, they're both doing kind of the same. If you are using React Native Fast Image in your project, probably you should continue using them, where yeah, you can check it out and see what's the difference between Expo and the Fast Image. Okay, let's see others. Is Expo Router production ready? I mean, does it have option to set iOS like search bar with animation like React Navigation has? Yes, it is production ready, and the features that you're describing that are available in React Navigation, you can do them with Expo Router because Expo Router is built on top of React Navigation. So most of the things that you can do in React Navigation, you can do it in Expo Router. Expo Router just automates the step of looking at your folders and then setting up React Navigation for you. And in a lot of cases, you would want to adjust, for example, the way your tabs look, and you can do that through the layout. So as you can see here, if you go to the apps, tabs, and layout, this is where we can see basically React Navigation code. And here is how we can adjust the icons, how we can implement header right buttons, and so on. So yes, you can do most of the things that you can do in React Navigation in Expo Router as well. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have other questions, please let me know down below. And yeah, subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all the new things that are happening in mobile development. And we are here, we're doing this content to help you become a better developer and to help you build impactful application and change the world with them. If you enjoy what you're seeing, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell. We're going live every Friday with a new project-based build, and I'm gonna see you soon. Bye bye guys.